Jack Taylor. I am the director at Psychotherapy Networker, here with the amazing Deb Dana, who is really the person who took this strange idea of polyvagal theory from Steve Porges and found that this was an incredibly useful model and method to help therapists understand what's going on in the moment, in sessions with their clients and also in themselves in our nervous systems. And this was really one of the first times, really, the nervous system came into psychotherapy in quite this way. So thank you so much for being here. We're going to have a little bit of a chat with Deb for the next 20 or 30 minutes, so buckle up. And we're also going to talk about this new card deck that she's done to really capture polyvagal theory to help therapists use it in session. So Deb, welcome to the live stream. And we are streaming, by the way, to both the Psychotherapy Networker audience as well as the Norton Publishing audience. So welcome everyone who's coming in from Norton as well. Deb, thanks for being here.
It is so fun to be here with you. We have a friendship going back quite a while now, and we always go on an adventure together. So let's see where we go today.
Yes. I want to encourage everybody, if you have a question for Deb, feel free. Anything related to polyvagal theory, using polyvagal theory in practice, go ahead and put that wherever you're watching in the comments section, and we'll see it right here. But Deb, I want to start with, what is it that about polyvagal theory that is so important that you think every therapist should know about it? Or what is it we're missing if we as therapists don't understand polyvagal theory?
So, I think no matter what kind of therapy we're trained in, and we're all trained in lots of different ways of working, but no matter what kind of therapy we're trained in and are using, we are engaging with our client's nervous system. And so for me, it is important for us to understand how that system works, to help our clients partner with their nervous systems, and for us to understand the incredible impact our nervous system is having on the therapy process. And I really discovered, I'm trained in a number of different modalities, and I discovered that after I discovered Steve's work with polyvagal theory, that the ways I work began to make more sense because I could put the science underneath them. When I got stuck, I could look to the nervous system to say, oh, what happened? When things were really flowing, again, I could look to the nervous system to see what's really supporting this flow. So it became sort of the platform that all of my work sat on top of.
Mm-hmm. I think if you're a therapist who's watching, you, like me, have probably been stuck in many sessions. And I know in watching you work, I've seen that actual thing happen where we don't know exactly where we're going, but understanding where a client's at, or you as a therapist are at in your nervous system, understanding that map I've seen it guide you. So I'm completely with you when it comes to understanding the map of the nervous system as another way of understanding where we are in a session.
Yeah.
I want to point out that Deb has a brand new card deck. I don't think you've ever done anything like this before.
Have never done a card deck. Nope.
So what is it about this this card deck? And I think this just came out this week. We're a little bit here to talk about the card deck, but also answer everybody's questions. What is it about this card deck that contributes to therapists being able to use polyvagal theory?
So I'm always looking for other ways to bring this work into a session that feels easy, that doesn't take a lot of learning, that clients can respond to. And so the card deck was a way to begin to do that. I would reach for card decks and think, oh, this is nice. And then I thought, oh, but we could bring these concepts, these practices, right, into a card deck, and people could then either choose from the part of the deck that is the part of the nervous system they want to work with. One of my favorite ways is to just pick a card, any card, and see what you get,
Mhm.
right? Because I do think that, oftentimes what we pick is exactly what, our nervous system is needing in the moment. I will say that for those of you out there who are writers, writing a card deck was an interesting experience because you get a very, very small word limit.
Mhm.
And so you have to be incredibly succinct in boiling it down to, each card has a concept, of prompt, and a tip on it. And so getting those exactly the right way, it was almost harder to write, these tiny short practices than it is to write a large
Mhm.
book. So, but I like it. And I'm, it's just out there in the world. So people are just starting to email me some of their experiences, and I encourage people. I love to hear from people. People email me all the time about the flip chart. Here's how I used it. Here's what happened. So,
Mhm.
email me what happens when you use the card deck. I'm
Mhm.
curious to know. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
and there it is. Thanks,
There it
Melissa.
is. Look at that.
Um, Speaking of making things succinct,
Hmm.
Cresta asked, who is looks, I think that's an acupuncturist, LAC, as well as looks like has an MS and an MA.
Uh-huh.
Um, Wants to know, how do you introduce clients to the idea of neuroception in a succinct way? So when you're talking to clients about their own nervous system,
Mhm.
how do you explain neuroception?
Yeah. So I love neuroception. So that's a great place to dive in. I talk about clients because clients usually understand, we have a gut feeling or an intuition or, something like that. And I say that, that's neuroception, that word that Steve Porges created. And I love the word, even neuroception. And that neuroception is the way the nervous system listens for welcomes or warnings, cues of safety or danger. And it listens through three pathways: inside, outside, between. And then we will go on to explore those three pathways. So, inside is what's happening inside, my body, my heart, my lungs, my viscera, my digestion. Outside is in the world around me. And the between is the conversation that my clients and my nervous system is having.
Mhm.
And I think it's a pretty easy way to introduce. And then oftentimes what I'll do is just divide a paper in half, cues of safety on one, cues of danger on the other,
Mhm.
and take the present moment. Licensed associate
Associate counselor.
counselor.
Oh, okay.
Thank you,
Wow,
Krista.
I
Yeah,
was way off.
you're way off. But and then take the present moment. So in this moment where we are right now, listen inside for a moment, and can you find one cue of safety and one cue of danger? I always start with one of each, right? And then we'll
Okay.
go to the environment, and then we'll
Yeah.
go to the between, and just one cue of safety and one cue of danger, because
Mhm.
that's the easy starting place. And whenever we're working in this way, which is often new to clients, we want them to feel successful. So we
Mhm.
need to make the practice bite-sized enough so that they can actually engage with it and feel,
Mhm.
oh, I'm beginning to understand.
I love that. So neuroception is how our nervous system listens. And the thing watching you work, you're doing things, a lot of things, some new things, but a lot of things therapists have always done.
Mhm.
But you give it a language. It's not only a new language, but I think it's a language really built around what's biologically happening, physiologically happening. And it makes, once you learn the language, it makes a lot of sense to clients. So
It does, and
I'm,
I like what you said about, it's a lot of it is what clinicians, intuitively are doing anyway, but
yeah.
it gives them the science underneath it, and knowing why it's working, I think is so helpful, and then letting clients in on that secret, which shouldn't be a secret, right? It's our biology at work, and let's figure out how we use it
Mhm.
together. So yeah, yeah.
We're gonna do one of the cards together in here in just a few minutes. But again, if you have a question for Deb Dana, please put it in the chat. Deb, before we came on, you were talking, you just had a conversation with Deepak Chopra.
I did. I
Tell
did.
us about tell us what that
Yeah.
was like.
Yeah.
And what was your favorite moment
Oh,
of that conversation?
I have to say, I often feel, and this is true, even when, I get emails in the morning with people around the globe saying, oh, this practice or this piece of writing really impacted me. And I think, who am I? How did I end up in this amazing life that I'm living right now? And so um, an email came in through the website from um, Deepak Chopra's admin person saying that Deepa loved my book Anchored and would like to talk to me about it on his podcast. And it was one of those moments of really who what so and so we had a lovely conversation this week, and I have to say that, for those of us who understand polyvagal, my vagal brake was released quite a bit, and I was feeling a lot of that sympathetic
Uh-huh.
energy. And yet, once we started talking, it just really felt like a lovely conversation
Hmm.
going on. And a couple favorite moments. One was, when he was sharing a couple of his personal experiences. One about being able to lower his breath to something that's so few breaths per minute that it's almost like being dead, and my experience of breath being challenging. And so we really could talk about the differences
Hmm.
in the ways we live. And I think there was this moment when I was talking about how the spiritual pathway, which is one of the four pathways that we have open access to when we're anchored in ventral, that
Hmm.
spiritual pathway is still the most elusive for me.
Hmm.
And he told me, he gave me a definition of spirit, and that I can't remember now, so I want to listen when we get the tape, that just landed and made me feel not so terrible at
Hmm.
following a and it was just such a lovely moment. And I told him, I said, "Oh, thank you, that landed, and now I feel, like I might be able to really, pursue that." So there were a lot of these sort of very connected moments, even though, I only knew him through his writing or YouTube, and he only knew me through, one book, I imagine. But as our
Hmm.
nervous systems came into connection there, and I told him, I said, there's this sense, this welcome that my nervous system is feeling, and it feels like a friendship is beginning. That's neuroception. That was
Hmm.
neuroception at work, right? That the sense
Hmm.
of someone being safe enough to really calm, become more regulated and connect with.
Hmm.
We had a lovely conversation, and
Hmm.
afterwards, I will say I was sort of like the animal that shakes off the anxiety, because we got
Hmm.
done and I went downstairs, and there's nobody here to share this with. And I thought, oh,
Yeah.
there's just some of this going on. So it's just it was a pretty special experience, and
Hmm.
leads me to someplace that I'm hoping to go in the next year, to bring polyvagal not only to clinicians, who are my people,
Hmm.
but to what I call curious human beings, because
Hmm.
we all have a nervous system, and I think it's important that we know how to befriend it and work with it.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. I think as therapists, we're constantly working with people to calm their nervous system, but I don't know of any other approach that really puts a language around how to do that. What's actually happening in the nervous system to actually know where to go. It does. No other approach provides sort of a map
right,
of the nervous system to know, oh, I'm here and I need to go here.
right,
I think prior to learning this myself, it was just kind of like, I want to calm down, but I don't exactly know how to do that other
right,
than through some breath work or something.
right.
But
And
this,
then and you say calm down. One of the cards, it's I
yeah.
don't have it handy right now, but one of the cards is called calm up,
Ah,
because on the
same.
ladder, on the hierarchy, we don't want to calm down. Down would be down to dorsal.
Yeah.
We want to calm up. We want to organize the sympathetic energy and come
Right.
up the ventral.
Right.
So calm up. So we're going to calm up, Zach.
And just for the purposes of this, live stream, polyvagal theory essentially breaks the nervous system into three categories that have some overlap, a lot of overlap, but just for the purposes of language, there's these three sort of distinct states or phases. Just briefly, what are those three just that make up the bulk of the map?
So we have ventral, sympathetic, and dorsal. And, if we start in ventral, the place where you and I really want to be right now, anchored in ventral, it's the place where we feel a neuroception of safe enough.
Hmm.
We're organized enough so that we can be present, connect, and communicate.
Yeah.
And ventral has lots of different flavors, from really at ease, relaxed, to passionate, purposeful, meeting the moment with energy. All of that is ventral. What makes you know you're in ventral is the neuroception is one of safety.
Hmm.
So those, neuroception and states go together so beautifully. Then the first survival state is sympathetic. And I think most of us know that it's that fight and flight energy, right?
Hmm.
We're, cortisol, adrenaline, we're flooded with disorganized, chaotic energy. And then the second survival state, the one that Steve brought to life so beautifully when he illustrated this theory, is dorsal. And dorsal is the place of, not enough energy to run our system. We're drained, we're collapsed, we're shut down,
Hmm.
we're disconnected in some way.
Hmm.
And so those are the three basic states. And in the card deck, we've got cards that go for each state, as well as a section that talks about the relationship between states, because that's really what we're talking about
Hmm.
as human beings. Is these three states are always moving in relationship with each other,
Hmm.
right? So I'm anchored in ventral right now because there's more ventral activity in my system, but sympathetic and dorsal are still there. They're just
Hmm.
doing other jobs in the background. And so that relationship, we're a system, right? It's the autonomic nervous system, and it's made up of parts that have to be connected in some way. And so in this kind of work, we're really talking about how do we help our states come into relationship with each other in a different way.
Hmm. And I'm gonna mess up your name, and I apologize, but Katarzyna asked, how can this is interesting. We work with a lot of anxiety,
Yes.
and it's different for every client. But
Yeah.
someone comes in with generalized anxiety disorder. How are you starting? And we can't get into everything, but how can you start working with someone with generalized anxiety from a polyvagal theory perspective? Just give us that
Yeah.
that example.
Yeah, sure. And that's a great example to start with. And what I would say is that example can really be generalized to most every client, because the theory points us in the same direction. When a client comes in with symptoms, in this case, anxiety, the nervous system is trying to tell us something. The symptom, the anxiety is the symptom, and we want to look underneath the symptom to find out how is the nervous system dysregulated that is bringing that
Hmm.
symptom to life. And so I always begin by making the personal profile map. That's always where I begin, because it helps clients really get to know those three states we talked about. And from that place, what is missing in a client with anxiety is enough anchoring in ventral. The same is true for a client in depression, or in any any diagnosis, any problem that they bring. The ventral energy anchoring is missing. And so really, we want to attend both to the dysregulation, but we do that by bringing in more moments of regulation.
Hmm.
So we help them find those micro moments of ventral that begin to accumulate, right?
Hmm.
I call them glimmers, right? The glimmer moments when, yes, they are suffering with anxiety, and their nervous system also can find sparks of ventral regulation.
Hmm.
That's the beauty of the nervous system. It does both all the time. And
Hmm.
so with someone with, generalized anxiety disorder, we're going to really, affirm that their nervous system is taking them into this anxiety because it is neurocepting cues of danger. So we're going to honor what is happening. That's first. And then we're going to figure out how do we, reduce some of those cues of safety, but how do we develop more anchors in ventral? And that really is
Hmm.
the process, and probably the process for anybody I work with. Right?
Hmm.
Sometimes I feel like a broken record. I get these clinical questions all the time, and
Yeah.
pretty soon my consultees start answering it for me. Oh, we need more ventral. Uh-huh.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah, because polyvagal is kind of a meta theory, and so you're not focused on symptoms. You're focused on what's going on underneath, and what's going on underneath is some kind of manifestation of what's going on in the nervous system.
Right.
So you're just translating it into this new language.
Yeah.
Our friend Michael Alcee is here, another Norton author. Shout out to Michael and his book on therapeutic improvisation. So Zelda mentioned your flip chart and wondering about this card deck. What's the difference? What are they? How are each going to be used?
Yeah, so the flip chart I hear from colleagues is really useful in sessions to sort of go to the principle and the way the principle is you're using it in a session. So you could go to a certain page and really illustrate, here's the vagal break, or illustrate, here's the hierarchy. And you can even do the mapping on the flip chart. The card deck differently has 58 individual practices. So where the flip chart sort of helps you illustrate the theory, the card deck brings practices.
Got it. Okay. Do you want to try an example here? I think you were going to pick a card for me.
I did. I picked a card for you, and I picked a card in the purple realm, the dorsal realm.
Okay.
Because I know you know
dorsal. Define dorsal real quick.
Dorsal is that place. Let me read you the concept here because it talks about, so the concept, the dorsal survival state is the path of last resort. When all else fails, the nervous system moves into shutdown. Dorsal collapse rescues us from the overwhelming experience of sympathetic fight and flight and offers protection through disconnection. Okay, that's the concept. Here's the
protection through disconnection.
Yes. Yeah, which is a place I know well, and I think you might know as well. Right? So, all right, the prompt. Identify your day-to-day worries and discover what your dorsal system is protecting you from. So here's the fill in the blank. If I wasn't, and I want you to fill in a thought, feeling, or behavior you're experiencing in the dorsal disconnect place. So if I wasn't what? If I wasn't, so for me, it would be if I wasn't zoning out on Netflix. That's what I've been doing recently. So if I wasn't what for you, Zach? If I wasn't, what's a disconnecting thought, feeling, or behavior you've been experiencing?
Yeah. If I wasn't so self-conscious.
Okay.
That's I guess a little bit of a thought and a feeling.
Okay. Then I would, and here you want to fill in what harm might come to you, because this is what your dorsal is protecting you from. If you weren't so self-conscious, then what worst thing might happen?
If I wasn't so self-conscious, if I wasn't so self-conscious, what am I afraid would happen?
Yeah, what is your nervous system afraid would happen? Because it's protecting from something worse.
I say this as I sit in front of maybe thousands of people.
Yeah.
I wouldn't make a fool of myself. Or you know what someone told me once? I'm just being really honest. They said I smile too much, and I just thought. And so I ever since then, I've become more self-conscious of like talking to people and smiling. And so I'll become very self-conscious of just so like, am I just smiling too much like an idiot?
So if you weren't so self-conscious, you would smile too much and look like an idiot. That's what
maybe. Yeah, that's one small way, but I think that's very real for me.
Yeah. So for me, if I wasn't zoning out on Netflix, I would be sending emails I shouldn't send. That's what. Right?
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And then we want to switch this around by identifying your hope, because discovering what your dorsal system is keeping you from that might positive happen. So if I wasn't so self-conscious, then what positive thing might happen for you?
What positive thing might happen? I could really learn more of who I am really and connect with people even more. And I love connecting with people. It's why we connect and why we do this at Networker. I love connecting. And it's so hard when I have parts of myself that are afraid to connect.
Right. And that's the, sort of the paradox of the nervous system, because your survival state is protecting you from what it thinks would be worse.
Hmm.
but it's also keeping you from a
Yeah.
ventral experience. And so this what if helps you sort of identify those
And I,
moments.
want to say that this is just a huge problem. I mean, I don't want to bash on social media because we're on social media right now, but it is, maybe it has made us more self-conscious of looking good and not looking bad. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, thank you, Alan. Oh, please keep smiling.
Yeah.
Thank
See?
you.
See? And
You know what was a really great
yeah.
corrective experience? And
Yeah.
I was interviewing Russell Brand about two
Mhm.
years ago,
Mhm.
and he told me I had a nice smile. And I
Oh,
don't think he knew what he was saying
right.
to
Right.
me, but
No.
that impacted me tremendously.
Yeah.
It was
That's
just
so
about 2 years ago.
fascinating that people don't know the impact that, their words have. And
It,
that was such a disconfirming experience for you and a before and after moment, right? Yeah.
yeah, truly. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Oh, thank you. Everybody's so kind.
See, everybody's gonna encourage you to keep on smiling.
Oh, I
And if
probably
we
do
think
too
about that
much.
through the lens of the nervous system, your smile, when it's an authentic smile, right, it
Mhm,
reaches your eyes, you are
mhm,
sending my nervous system through neuroception a welcome,
mhm.
right?
Right,
Yeah,
right. That's
yeah,
absolutely true.
yeah.
Well, good. That was wonderful. And that was just one example from
Mm,
this card deck. I
mhm.
mean, what is it, 57 more?
Yes,
Um,
57 more.
that that was a really nice moment
Mm.
to do.
And
So
and
thank you for doing this.
I think what I envision, what I hope, and I'll hear from colleagues is, if you and I had been working, with your dorsal system, we could pull that dorsal card, and it would really fit with the work we'd done. The same with the other cards. Or, once you've been working in this way, you could have your client pick a card, take it home, bring it back the next week, and
Mhm.
bring back what they've done. So they're simple enough so that it's supposed to not evoke an intense response, so that you can do it outside of session and in
Yeah.
session. Yeah,
Well, with the other card decks that I know Pessy's put out, we've seen a lot of people take pictures on their cell phone of the card in session,
yeah,
and then they make that picture their wallpaper on their phone for the week. So every
yeah.
time every time they pick up their phone, they
There it
see
is.
the prompt.
Yeah,
So I don't
yeah.
think that's a copyright infringement, Kevin, is it?
Too
So
late now.
he's probably here somewhere, keeping an eye on us.
It's interesting because again, I would, that's an interesting thing to do. I hadn't thought of that, and and I could take a picture and have my client have it. And I would invite everybody to think about, when
Mhm,
Zach just said, take a picture so that every time you open up your phone, there it is. My
mhm.
nervous system said no, thank you, because it
Ah,
felt too
yeah.
much in my face. Right.
Ah,
And somebody else's nervous system might say, that's great. I'm going to remember to do it.
mhm.
That's
Yeah,
the beauty of this way of working. It's a conversation we are having with a nervous system, not the brain. The
yeah.
brain would say, "Oh, that's a great idea. I'm gonna do that." When the
Mhm.
nervous system says, "Oh, no, thanks." Right?
I'm so glad you said that because that's another thing I notice about your work and what polyvagal theory I think is added to the conversation is that things don't have meaning until they have meaning. You don't know what something means to a client's nervous system, that what triggers my nervous system might create safety in your nervous system.
Right.
You
Right.
know, I watch probably too much cops and forensic files. Remember that old show from the 90s, Forensics Files? What a great show, and it's terrifying to most people, but
Yeah,
I
I loved it.
find it fascinating, and I
Yeah.
can go right to sleep afterwards, as bizarre as that is.
Uh-huh.
Um,
And
you
and
know,
and I love
yeah,
that you said that, just to follow up one more thing, that it's our responsibility to know what's happening in our nervous system, and then be
mhm,
curious what's happening in another nervous system, whether we're
yeah,
therapist, client, friend, parent, child, doesn't matter, to
yeah,
know and be curious.
yeah, yeah. I think we got, a little bit more here. Oh, thank you, Paul. Um, you know, Echo is their name on YouTube. My gut feeling is underdeveloped. My
Mm,
gut feelings are underdeveloped because of numbing and dissociation. And how do I train that? I didn't know I didn't know until 55 that I spent my whole life so disconnected.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is the opposite side of sympathetic, is that dorsal shutdown, I guess. That's the
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
said safety and
Yeah.
disconnection.
Yeah, yeah, and Echo, I'm, it's you are not alone. I just want to say that first. There are so many of us in the world that left our bodies because that was the safe place to be, out of our bodies, and coming back in is difficult. I often even don't use the word body in my work. I use biology, because it
Mhm.
feels a bit different. What is your biology sending you
Ah,
as signals, not what is your body, but your biology. And with neuroception, which is what you're talking about, that disconnection from gut feeling, neuroception, when you think of the outside pathway is often where I would start in the environment around you. When you look at something, do you feel like, oh, I want to move closer, or do I want to get away? It can be as simple as that,
mhm,
beginning to get a sense of your neuroception that way. And on the inside pathway, I think we often feel a headache, a stomach ache,
mhm,
heart races, got a pain in my back. That, your biology is speaking to you. So to begin to gently dip a toe into listening to your biology, I think is where I always start, just gently.
mhm,
We start where we are and we dip a toe in and see, what is that like? And
mhm,
which pathway is the easiest, the between,
mhm.
the outside or the inside? And for many, many of us, the outside, that environmental pathway, is the easiest to begin to tap into.
Yeah, and again, I've watched you work for several years now, and one thing that started to dawn on me, because I'm a little bit of a slow learner, is that it's not just about staying in one state. It's not staying in that what you call ventral, which is that safe and connected state. Um, it's about, I watch you help clients just learn to move, because you need all three states.
Yeah.
And almost like mindfulness, it's not about staying in one place, but it's about learning that when you go here, you can come back here when you need.
Right. And, and I say that clearly, and I'm glad you brought that up so I can say it now, that
Mhm,
none of us can stay anchored in ventral all the time. It is unachievable
mhm,
for any of us, right? And really not wanted. What we want is to know when we've been moved out of ventral into a survival state and have
mhm,
pathways to take us back to ventral. That's flexibility, and
mhm,
flexibility means resilient. Right.
mhm.
And so, even when you were talking before about the comment that you have a beautiful smile, right? That was like
Well,
somebody.
Russell actually said I had a nice set of rails in his own,
Okay, you
in
had
his
a nice
British,
set of rails.
in his
I
in
like
his East London accent.
I love
Uh,
it. So, but that was he was joining you in one of your survival experiences, and so
mhm,
you weren't alone in it, and he gave you a different perspective. That's
yeah,
what we do in therapy. It's not that our clients don't go to sympathetic and dorsal, but they don't go alone,
yeah,
right? And that experience of being accompanied to sympathetic and dorsal is often unfamiliar, brand new, never happened before. That's what my
mhm,
clients tell me over and over, because the trauma experience and our trauma stories are held in sympathetic and dorsal.
mhm,
So, we're alone in our trauma. So
mhm,
when I go with them, and the question I always ask my clients that question, do you want me to go with you? And you've seen that in
yeah,
demos, and clients usually go, oh, please, would you
yeah,
really? Right? It's
mhm,
like, "Oh my god, someone will go with me." And so, yeah, that's the experience we want our clients to have, to bring enough ventral with us when we
yeah,
go visit sympathetic and dorsal, so that we can be with what's
yeah,
happening rather than be hijacked by it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Deb, everyone, we've gone a little long. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Mm.
Deb does a ton of training. She's got a ton of stuff out there. Please learn more about this. It's an interesting language. It's an interesting map of what might be going on in your clients. And check out the new card deck if you'd like. And I'd be remiss to oh, there it is. Thank you, Melissa. Um, to just thank you for everything you do for Psychotherapy Networker. You've been a contributor to the magazine and the symposium for many years. Anybody who's stuck around, by the way, if you'd like to subscribe to the magazine, it's just $12 a year if you're new. Oh, on cue. I, I have nothing to do with this, but Deb is often featured in there with her newest ideas. Pretty much every sort of innovator in the field, when they have new ideas, they're writing or they're interviewed in the magazine. So it's really the one place that's really for the psychotherapy community. It's not pop psychology. It's not for the necessarily the general public, although we have a lot of people who read it, but it's really the stories of what's happening in therapists' consulting rooms, and it's what's happening among the leaders and the innovators, what they're thinking about. So every other month, we put out some brand new stories, and they're really engaging stories that are not only interesting, but I think really inspiring when you're feeling alone as a therapist, talking about being together. So if you'd like to, I think the option is there for you. Thank you so much, Deb. We will see you very soon. And everyone, thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone from Norton, for putting this together too. Really appreciate you doing this deck. Take care,
Lovely
everyone.
to be here with you again.
Yeah. See you